Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. What happens when the builders of civilization decide they've had enough? What happens when the protectors, the providers, the creators of the very foundations we stand on quietly turn their backs and walk away? We're living through the answer right now. And it's not loud, it's not chaotic. There are no marches, no placards, no shouted slogans. It's quiet, it's deliberate. It's a withdrawal so profound that it is shaking the very bedrock of society. Men are on strike. Let me say that again. Men are on strike. They are walking away from marriage, from fatherhood, from the workforce, from the dating market, from higher education, from the social contracts that once gave their lives meaning. They're not shouting about it. They're not making demands. They're just leaving, showing their backs to what once gave their lives meaning and purpose. What? And that silence, that quiet refusal, it speaks louder than words ever could. Why would men do this? Why would the very people who built our bridges, fought our wars and protected our homes decide to stop? It's because we've created a world that demands everything from men but gives them nothing in return. A world that has forgotten their sacrifices. A world that takes and takes and takes until there's nothing left. Think about it. In marriage, men watched their fathers, their uncles, their mentors lose everything in family courts that treated them like criminals instead of caregivers. They've seen good men stripped of their homes, their savings, and even their children. They've seen fathers reduced to visitors in their own kids' lives. And they've made a decision. That will never happen to me. In relationships, men hear the world tell them their masculinity is toxic, their desires are wrong, their worth is conditional. They are expected to provide, protect, and perform, but never complain. And when they can't meet these impossible expectations, they're cast aside, ridiculed, or ignored. In the workplace, men are expected to take the dirtiest, most dangerous jobs, the jobs that keep the lights on and the wheels turning. And yet, they're told they're privileged. They're told they're part of the problem. They're told they need to step aside. So they do. They step aside and walk away. In education, boys are treated like defective girls. Their energy is stifled. Their natural instincts are punished. They're told to sit down, be quiet, and stop being who they are. And when they fall behind, nobody stops to ask why. And what about the justice system? It treats men with disgust as disposable, guilty until proven innocent. Harsh sentences for crimes where women get a slap on the wrist. False accusations ruin lives while accusers, the women, face no accountability. Everywhere they turn, men are met with the same message. You are the problem. You are expendable. You are the nature of wrong. You are not enough. And so men are choosing something radical. They are choosing themselves. They are saying, no more. They are refusing to marry in a system that sees them as wallets, not partners. They are opting out of relationships where they are only valued for what they can provide. What they provide is taken for granted. They are walking away from a workforce that treats them as disposable cogs in a machine. They are retreating from an educational system that tells them they don't matter. This isn't a tantrum. It's not a cry for attention. It's a quiet revolution. And it's working. Birth rates are plummeting. Fertility rates are collapsing. Entire nations are staring down the barrel of a demographic crisis because men have decided they won't play a rigged game. Economies are wobbling because the men who once carried them on their backs are no longer willing to bear the weight. But this revolution comes at a cost. Because when men step away, everyone suffers. When fathers disappear, families crumble. When workers withdraw, industries falter. When protectors and providers turn inward, society loses its foundation and civilizations collapse. This is the price of contempt. This is what happens when a society spends decades tearing men down, stripping them of their dignity, and taking their contributions for granted. Do you see it now? Do you see the father who works 2 jobs but still gets called a deadbeat because he's behind on child support payments that leave him penniless? Do you see the young man who's been told all his life that his masculinity is a disease? And now he refuses to date, refuses to marry, refuses to build a life in a world that doesn't value him, causing him to walk away with his seed. Do you see the worker who risks his life every day on an oil rig, on a construction site, in a coal mine, only to come home and hear that he's not just part of the problem, but the problem itself? Do you see them? Because they see you. They see the system that doesn't care, and they've decided they don't care either. We are standing on the edge of a precipice. We are galloping toward the cliff. And I need you to understand something. If this continues, we won't just lose men. We'll lose everything. We'll lose families. We'll lose stability. We'll lose the very fabric of civilization. Because make no mistake, civilization rests on the shoulders of men. It always has. And when those shoulders shrug, the whole thing falls apart. This isn't about pity. Men aren't asking for handouts. They're not asking for special treatment. They're demanding respect. So what do? We start by listening, by understanding, by admitting that we got it wrong. We reform family courts so fathers are treated as equals, not as afterthoughts. We rebuild an education system that nurtures boys instead of punishing them for being boys. We create workplaces that value men's contributions without vilifying their presence. We change the narrative around masculinity. Masculinity isn't toxic. It's powerful, it's protective, it's the force that builds, defends, and sustains. But most importantly, we stop taking men for granted, because this silent strike, it won't stop until we do. To the men who have walked away, we see you, we hear you, we understand why you've made this choice. But we also want you to know this. The world needs you. It needs your strength, your courage, your sacrifice. It needs fathers to guide the next generation. It needs workers to build a better tomorrow. It needs protectors to keep the wolves at bay. And yes, we know this world has failed you. We know it has taken you for granted. But if we can change, if we can recognize your worth and fight for your place in this society, we believe we can build something better. Together. Revolution is here. It's quiet. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Let's make it heard. So what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hard-hitting content. Thanks for watching.